We're back out on the bass buggy, and today we're talking about why, when you go out to your favorite fishing hole, you just can't seem to catch any fish. Stick around, it's going to be a good one. Welcome back to lowbrow fishing. And if you ask any angler, they'll tell you time is the most precious commodity they have. And anymore, it seems to be in more and more short supply. That's why when we do get a chance to go out to the lake, the last thing we want to do is be spending time searching for fish. We go out to our favorite fishing hole and we start to fish. We've been looking forward to it all week. You've been thinking about exactly what it is that you want to throw. You rig it up and you start casting. And then you start casting. And then you cast some more. And you cast some more. And those fish just don't want it. So you think about it for a minute. Okay, well, maybe plan B. Let's go ahead and see what else they want. You dig through your tackle box, you find something you feel is appropriate, and you tie that on. And then you start casting, and you start casting, and you cast some more. And before you know it, you look down and an hour has gone by and you haven't had any bites. Frustration starts to set in. So you go back to your tackle box and you start rummaging through it. Okay, what's going to be the surefire thing? Think hard. Think, think, think. What am I going to use that's going to get those fish to bite my bait? So you think you find something. Okay, that's going to be it. It has to be that for sure. You tie it on, you go back over to the water, and you start casting. And you cast, and you cast, and you cast. And you're not getting any bites. Well, sad to say, changing baits out 1,000,000 times is not going to help, because at this point, you fouled up the water. If there were any fish there to begin with, they're not biting what you have. They know you're there, they're on to you, and they don't care what you have. That is why the concept of covering water is so important. Well, what is covering water? We hear pro anglers talk about it all the time. What exactly does it mean? Well, it means covering water. It means to move from place to place to place, fishing in short increments, seeing if there's any fish there, and moving on to the next. It may seem like a simple concept, and to a lot of anglers, it may even seem like an ineffective concept, because we have a tendency to want to pick each location to pieces to see if there's any fish at all in there. But that's the wrong way of looking at it. You've got to be willing to move on. Make 5 or 10 casts, fan casts. Make them from one direction to the next, casting shallow, casting deep, casting close by, casting far away. If that bait didn't work, maybe change to another one. But usually the best procedure is just to move on. You need to let that water rest for at least 30 minutes before coming back. Now, those of you who watch the channel regularly have heard me say this before, but I've not done a video dedicated just to this topic. And I'm seeing anglers devote their entire day to one location, either on the bank or on the boat, and they're not catching any fish because they see those spots and they think, that place is so choice. There has to be fish in there. There's flooded brush, or there's lily pads, or there's structure. I know there has to be fish back there. And there might be fish back there. Chances are there are probably fish back there. However, you may not be able to entice them to bite regardless of what you do. There is no magic wand that you can wave to get those fish turned on to whatever it is you're throwing. I know that there's always some magical little trick that somebody's promoting that says that you can get those inactive fish fired up. But I'm here to tell you, those don't work. The only way to get the fish fired up is if 1 or 2 of them start biting. Then the rest will usually say, oh, what's all that commotion about? And then they'll want to investigate. That is the only way to get a school of fish activated, is if 1 or 2 are interested to begin with. But if none of them are interested, then none of them are interested, and there is literally very little you can do about that, except move on. Changing baits 1,000,000 times is not going to help your cause. But what if I'm on the bank, you say? What if this is literally the only spot that I have to fish? Unfortunately, that doesn't change anything. If you have one honey hole or one favorite spot that you like to fish, and you've caught fish there before, and you'll probably catch fish there again, but today, it's just not happening. If you can, I strongly suggest you try to find other places along that same body of water. Sometimes places that you don't think are any good turn out to be pretty good, because there are things going on underneath the water that you don't see. And there's also other places that a lot of anglers just don't think about fishing, such as the boat ramp. That's right, one of the best places to catch fish is a boat ramp. So I always recommend, if you're a bank fisherman, or even if you're fishing from the boat, hit up the boat ramp. It's probably one of the best places that you can go, and it's easy to get to. That's why it's always very important to see if you can stake out at least 2 or 3 viable locations for any body of water from the bank. Fish them for no more than 15 minutes, making fan casts. If you're going to change baits, do it once. If you're changing baits 2 and 3 times on the same location, that's not going to make any difference. Now, you may have a fish come into the area and luck up and catch it, but that's going to be so few and far between, it's going to be an outlier. It's not going to be the rule. So don't interpret it as such. Don't think, oh, I switched from a Texas rig to a crankbait, now I caught that one fish, that's going to be the key. Chances are that fish was merely roaming and you ended up catching its attention and you got a bite. Now, that's way better than not getting anything at all, but keep it in perspective for what it probably is. You didn't miraculously find a way to turn the school on by going from the Texas rig to a crankbait. Again, fish roam, and sometimes they roam in schools. Now, if you catch another fish doing the same thing, you may be onto something, but those chances are so rare and so random. It's never really a good idea to sit in one spot and let the fish come to you, especially if you have other alternatives. If that's the case, where you have to sit and let the fish come to you, you may have to adjust your times going to the lake. It may be better to find out what time those fish are feeding and then go to those spots, because usually, fish being creatures of habit, they like to feed at approximately the same times every day. Once early in the morning, once in the mid-afternoon, and then once in the evening. Those are generally your best time for feeding. And even then, there's no guarantee that the fish are consistently coming through that one particular area to feed at any given time. So again, your best bet is to move and cover water. This is a philosophy that pro anglers rely on to make their living and cash checks. Rarely do they sit in one spot. Even if they are catching fish in a particular location, chances are they're going to be moving on before too long to keep from burning that spot up and save some fish for the next tournament day. So keep in mind, if you're having trouble from the bank fishing from one spot, changing your baits over and over, the best remedy for that, the easiest remedy for that, is just to move locations. And I bet, even if you are a bank angler and you think you've only got one spot to fish from, if you look around a little bit, I'm sure you'll find at least 1 or 2 more places you can find a cast here or there. So there you have it. Covering water is simply the best way to improve your chances for catching bass. It's easy to do, it doesn't cost you anything, and for an angler on a limited time, it's the best way to maximize your experience on the water. I suggest you make it part of your fishing philosophy too. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.